So this morning we're going to cover something called jQuery AJAX. And AJAX is this concept of, it stands for asynchronous JavaScript and XML, AJAX. It's also the name of some cleaning product, if I'm not mistaken, AJAX.
Yeah.
It's the one that comes in a can, right? Oh yeah, this thing, yeah. But yeah, AJAX stands for asynchronous JavaScript and HTML. And it's pretty much everywhere on the internet. Like, some would argue it makes the user experience better. Some people may argue it's not the best thing in the world. Whether you have noticed, whether you've not noticed, the web runs on AJAX. So let's go to like something like twitter.com. So I'm here on twitter.com, and this is Code Platoon's Twitter page. If you use any sort of social media, what you'll find is you'll go to like the bottom of your page, and all of a sudden, I can't reach the bottom. I get to the bottom, this little circle appears. Oh, that's kind of cute. And then more things show up on the page. So I've actually never left this page, but it's making requests in the background. So like, this concept is called infinite scroll, which is I get down to the bottom. It's like it's trying to make the user experience as good as possible. You're trying to keep people on your website and keep people entertained. I'm pretty sure people have been in the restroom or at nighttime just flipping through the phones, and then you realize it's been like 15 minutes or 30 minutes, and you're like, oh, I should probably go to bed, because there's an endless number of things that show up, and that's the purpose here. What happens is this entire JavaScript, this entire HTML page will load for twitter.com. I'm going to scroll all the way down to the bottom. JavaScript is going to realize, hey, you've reached the bottom of the window, and thus because you reached the bottom of the window, I want to make a request. So remember, I go all the way down to the bottom. This little circle appears saying like, I'm looking more stuff. It's kind of some user feedback. And when it's finished, it creates an additional bit of the page. The page gets a little bit longer, grabs a whole bunch, maybe the next 20 stories or so, and then it puts these 20 stories on your page right here. So you've used this if you've gone onto Twitter, if you've gone onto YouTube and you kept going down, the videos never stop. There's an infinite number of videos in the world. Or if you've gone to Facebook all the way down to the bottom, there's an infinite scroll. Another example of this is, let's jump over to Google Maps. So let's jump over to Code Platoon. So here we are at Code Platoon. Now, there's a lot of AJAX happening in the background. AJAX being asynchronous JavaScript and XML. These are just requests that are happening in the background. So let's scroll out. If I scroll out here, things get a little bit smaller. There's only big monuments that really matter. So I have the Chicago Architecture Foundation, the Board of Trade, the Rookery Building, and all of the different L stations that are parked around here. L being Chicago's Chicago Transit Authority. Now, if I scroll in, you can kind of see like this is fully loaded at this particular point. Like the website has fully loaded. There's no refreshing happening in this browser right here. But if I zoom in, even just a little bit, maybe a little bit here, there's a little bit more detail of happening. What's close, like as I zoom in, there's more and more detail that's happening. So when I zoom out, there's no, there's no individual buildings, but when I zoom in, all of a sudden, I get the Hyatt Centric, which is the hotel like just a block west of here. Or if I go even a little bit further, the CIBC Theater, which is where Hamilton is right over here. And as I get closer and closer in, I have Loft and Walgreens, and I get closer. They have more and more things that are getting populated in the background. Now, this makes for a really nice user experience because I know that the more, like, I don't think of this as a user, but the more that I zoom in, the more things that I will see and know what's around me. These are not loaded automatically when you load the page, because otherwise, if I were to type in like Chicago, Illinois, something like that, obviously they don't have every single, they don't have literally every single like building loaded up right when you type in Chicago, Illinois. But as I zoom in and I get closer and closer, there's AJAX requests being made in the background. Let's go down to like the shed aquarium area. As I zoom in, there's more and more information. I keep zooming in. Now there's some buildings that are showing up. I keep zooming in. There's some more stores and things like that. And as I go super far in, you can kind of see like these are all the they can even get down to the point where there's a Bitcoin ATM. And this is the power and example of AJAX. It certainly didn't load up whenever you first loaded the page, but it's based off of user interaction with your website. Yeah, so we're going to be learning how to use a little bit of this technology today. Obviously, this is like AJAX at its very, very best. And it might not even be AJAX. It might be some other JavaScript stuff happening on the front end, but the technology that's powering it is still AJAX in the background. All right, so let's see how we can use this today. So right now we have this blank page. Let's read through this HTML together so that we're all exactly on the same page. So we have HTML here. We've wrapped the entire document with HTML tags to open and HTML tags to close. It's not a requirement because we have a .html file up here, but it's just kind of nice to know. I'm going to make this a little bit bigger. So it's just kind of nice to know. So I have an opening tag for HTML and I got a closing tag for HTML. I have two sections here. The first section is head. Head is all of the stuff that you need in order for your website to run, but it's not the content. It's like, it's all the stuff that you need for your website, but it's not like actually the content. So if you need external style sheets, if you need Bootstrap, if you need jQuery, for example, all of that stuff goes inside of the head. This is saying like this is what you need before you start loading the page. And then you have the body here. The body is everything that will actually show up on the page. So as of right now, inside the head, we have two scripts. Script being anything for JavaScript. So I have a script, and the source is going outside. I'm going to the jQuery.com to get all the code for this. And this link right here is nothing more than just a text file of JavaScript code that lives on the internet. So I can literally just visit this website, and it looks like this. So underneath the hood of jQuery is all of this code right here. I have no idea what any of this says because I'm not a machine. And this is what's called this little .min here. If you see up here in the URL, the .min means minified, meaning that all the white space, more or less most of the white space has been taken out just to make it as small as possible, as easy for the computer to read. A computer can look through this very simply and just know exactly what's going on. We as human beings can't really use it, but you can kind of start to see things like function A, B, use strict. I don't even know where the closing thing is. Yeah, I have no idea where the closing curly brace to this is, but the computer knows. So this is just a minified version of jQuery. This is all the code that powers jQuery in the background. And you can kind of see there's quite a bit of it, even for a minified version right here. If we were to fully space this out, it might be, 3,000 lines long. I don't know. I'm just pulling a number out of my butt. So the first line, line 3 here, says that we need a JavaScript file. Specifically, we need one that's external for jQuery. And then the second one we have here on line 4 is application.js. This is an internal one that we can see because it doesn't have HTTPS in the front. This is a separate one that we're going to need to write a little bit later. This head is basically saying we need 2 JavaScript files in order to run this particular application. Inside the body here, again, the body is what shows up on the page. We have a div. And remember, divs are basically ways that you can split up your page into different sections very easily. Yes, you can have just a bunch of H1s with IDs on them. Yes, you can have a bunch of paragraph tags with IDs on them. But if you separate it into divs, it just makes it a little bit simpler. And then this particular div has an ID of response data. We're saying like this particular section, we'll just call it response data. And as you can see, there's nothing in there. That's why we have this blank page right here. I'm going to create a corresponding application.js file so that I can write all of my JavaScript in there. And this is a similar concept of when I have CSS, I can write it inline, sure. I can write all of my HTML and CSS and JavaScript code all in one file, and that's fine. But everything should do one thing. The HTML should just be in charge of HTML. this JavaScript one file that we're about to write should just be taking care of JavaScript. So I have these two things. I'll split the screen. And this is directly coming from your curriculum. So if you want to follow along with my voice in this voiceover later, you can. So let's grab all this stuff and throw it in here. Let's break down what we've got. I'm going to close off the side tab for a bit. This $, like we talked about yesterday, is shorthand for jQuery. The $, basically says I'm running some sort of jQuery function. And what's happening here is I am using the .getJSON method to reach out to this particular URL, and I'm going to get a response. So remember, this is the HTTP request and response. Using jQuery, I'm going to use the getJSON method to make an HTTP request to this particular URL. I'm going to call out to the server. The server is going to give me a response. What's going to happen is I'm going to get that response. I'm going to find the response data ID right here, and then I'm going to change the HTML of that particular div to the stringified version of this response. Again, I'm saying using jQuery, I'm going to use a function right when everything gets loaded up. I'm going to use jQuery. Using the getJSON method, I'm going to call out to this particular URL, and I'm going to get a response back. Using that response, I'm going to find this on the HTML document. I'm going to find response data, which is right here. I'm going to change the inner HTML to just the stringified version of the response. And again, you can just visit this on your own. Just hit this. I'm going to warn you ahead of time. This is one of the few things I could find that just returns text back to me. I do not support or endorse any text that comes back because it's very left-leaning. I neither support nor am against it. So when I visit JSONIP.com, it's literally just some JSON text that comes back. JSON just being, you can think of JSON as just like a hash or a JavaScript object. It's just a bunch of key value pairs. So this is the IP that it's hitting. This is about, and then they have a little phrase that says reject fascism and whatever. It doesn't matter what the content actually says. It's just as long as I'm getting some sort of response back. That's what I care about. So using this particular piece of JSON, I'm going to see if anything on my HTML page changes. So I'm going to refresh this. You can kind of see I've made that request out to this very left-leaning JSONIP.com, and it's taken that response, stringified it, and then thrown it out onto my particular onto my page right here. So even though my HTML document has no like text inside of here, this in the background is making a request, getting a response, and throwing it inside of my HTML for me.
So is the response argument on the right side, is that something you can name anything, or is that what actually like an internal jQuery thing? Okay.
Find out.
Okay.
So the question was this, before this read response, like, does it have to be response? Is that like a fixed keyword? No, it's just kind of like when you make a get JSON request, you're going to get a response back, because when you make a request, I get a response. If I say, good morning, Aaron, I made a request, he'll say something, he'll acknowledge me in some way, right? Even not acknowledging me is acknowledging me in some way. So I would say
you never assign response to anything. So
exactly.
I'm wondering, where's it pulling from? Is it pulling from line 2?
It's pulling from line 2.
Okay.
The result of this particular line right here is going to give you a response. So I just called that response. Okay. You can name this whatever you'd like. You can call this boop. You can call this response from server. Anything you would like. As long as this one and this one match up, you're good to go. All right. So the next step, let's parse the data that we get back, and then we're going to insert it into our HTML. Right now, it's just replacing all of the HTML with the stringified version. So we'll create an unordered list. Let's get rid of this. So what is the HTML tag for an unordered list? UL. And then I need a closing UL. I'm going to give this an ID of response data. I'm going to add some changes into my JavaScript file. Just write this. So again, using jQuery, I have a function here. I'm going to make a JSON request. Aaron, I'm not sure what you're doing, but it's distracting me. Thank you. This jQuery, I'm going to be using a method called getJSON. I'm going to reach out to this particular, oh God. I'm going to reach out to this particular URL. I'm going to get a response back. That response, I'm going to use another jQuery function right here. So it's jQuery using the $. I'm going to iterate over each one of the response. I'm going to append a list item to each individual item. And again, I make a request out to JSON IP, I get a response back. I'm going to iterate over each one of those things inside of the response. I'm going to throw it inside of response data. I'm going to append a list, and then the item, and then a closing list argument. Let's see if anything happens. As of right now, if I got rid of everything, go back to a blank page. I put that jQuery thing back inside of here. I get bullet points with each individual key value pair. So I get the IP address, the / whatever the URL is, and then some sort of left-leaning message. I'm pretty sure people are confused on this section right here.
So is that like an each with index? And I'm assuming I is index.
Exactly, yep. So this is, let's actually just see what response looks like. So I'm going to console log response.
Come from or something, like something like that. Like I might be able to add something to that effect in there. I'll go through it again and look for sure. And then Jason really wanted to add
All right, so I'm going to refresh this page here. And if all goes well, I can see what the response that I get back looks like. So the response that I get is actually just it looks like it's just a JavaScript object, a bunch of key value pairs. What I'm going to do is I'm going to iterate over each one of those things, and then I'm going to iterate over each one of the things inside of response and save it as item. It looks like item refers to the value at every single index. So the first thing is IP, like key value, and then key value. So that's where this comes from. You have this particular value, this particular value, this particular value, and this particular value that gets thrown into a list element, and then that particular item goes in, and then a closing list element.
What about .getJSON? What is that doing? Like, why is that useful? Why would we want to get the JSON of anything?
All right, so jQuery has this thing called getJSON. And what this does, it's basically, the description is right here. It basically just reaches out and grabs JSON data from a server using a GET request. We're actually not going to be using getJSON anymore. We're going to move over to AJAX right now. So getJSON is just like a kind of a simpler version of the jQuery AJAX call. So we're going to rewrite this using our AJAX method. It looks a little something like this. Again, I'm just copying and pasting this directly from your curriculum, so it's nothing like anything new. So again, I'm using jQuery, saying that when everything does load, I'm going to run this particular function between this line and this line. I'm making an AJAX request to JSONIP.com. If it is successful, this is like the full AJAX thing. If it's successful, I'm going to run this particular function using the response I get back from JSON IP. I'm going to iterate over the response. I'm going to save everything as the key, and I believe it's the value. Over here, I'm going to append onto address a list item plus whatever the whatever thing I'm iterating over is, and I'm going to close the list item. So let's see if this runs. Again, all we've done is we've gone from this using the get JSON, which is just a dumbed down version of this. So if all goes well, I can refresh this page and nothing works.
Need a ID of address.
I need an ID of address. So I was hoping no one would catch that, but someone did catch that. There was before, when we were doing things, we were looking for, jQuery was looking for an ID of response data. And response data is right here. However, in this new one, I changed it really fast, hoping that no one would notice and we would look around for a little while. But there's an ID here of address. So this is jQuery is looking for an ID of address to append this particular list onto. And since there's nothing called address here, it doesn't do anything. So all I need to do is either change this to response data or change this to address. I'll just change this to address from now, but I think response data is a better way to go. And we still get the same thing as we got before. Let's change this back to response data. So we've accounted for basically one thing, which is successful requests. But what if something blows up? What if there's an internal server error? What if I'm making a request to a wrong place? What if that place goes out of business? Like, we need to account for every possible scenario. So one is a successful thing that might happen. The other thing that we have to worry about is what happens if there is an issue. So I'm going to add just another section. So this particular piece of code is going to do two things. Oh gosh. This particular piece of code, all I've added is this extra section for error. So again, using jQuery, when everything loads, I'm going to run this particular function. This function is going to make an AJAX request out to JSON IP and do this if it's successful. If it's not successful, I'm actually going to alert you, and these three things come for free. If something blows up, JavaScript will automatically save the request that you made, and then as well as the response's error type and the error message that came back from the server. So I'm going to run this here, and nothing blows up. Why is that? Change this back to response data.
What do you mean they come for free? When you put that error function in, they're
Yep.
automatically parametered?
Exactly. Yeah, they're automatically given to you for free. So these three things you can get for free. So I'm refreshing it 1,000 times and nothing is changing on the screen except for more left-leaning things on this fourth bullet point. How come I can't hit this particular error down here?
URLs.
My URL is totally fine. So let's change it to not a URL 123 bang, 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 bang. Like, this is obviously not a real URL. So if I refresh this page at this point, I don't expect this particular success function to fire off. I expect this error to fire off. I'm going to get an error of some sort. Let's find out. All right. So I refreshed the page. It made a request to not a URL 1231 with 5 bang symbols at the end. So this is obviously not a URL, and it hits this error function down here. So I get back the request, the error type, and the error message that comes back for free. And this alert is just a pop-up. So it says error, and then the error type is just an error with lowercase with message, and there's no message at all because it's just that wrong. So just a little bit about how to handle both good things and bad things. Let's go back to here, get to a point where we're happy. All right, that's a good place to be. Now, when we go to things like twitter.com, Twitter obviously is, thousands of employees and, they're all well compensated and stuff like that. But if I scroll all the way down, the main thing they do really well, and most places that do AJAX really well, I go down to the bottom of the page. It gives me some sort of feedback that something is happening. I'm not just going down to the bottom and everything pauses. You want to make sure that you're giving your users like some sort of tactical feedback that something is happening. Again, I'm just scrolling all the way down to the bottom. It's giving me feedback, hey, I'm doing something. This circle is actually just a drawing. Like, it's just a GIF that goes around in circles. There's actually nothing special about that, but it's giving you the illusion that, hey, I'm working here. I'm working here, and I'm doing stuff in a circle. We're going to change our AJAX code to do stuff before and after the request. So I'm going to copy this, and we'll kind of read through it. And it's getting much larger now, so I'm going to shrink this down just a little bit. All right. We're no longer dealing with small little AJAX things. We're now dealing with much larger AJAX things, but some of this looks pretty similar. So again, all I've added is this little section down over here. So what's happening here is, again, page loads. I'm using the jQuery library to run this huge function right here. Now it's just a little bit ridiculous. Now it's 17 lines long. I'm making a request. It all kicks off with jQuery using the AJAX method to fire a request off to jsonip.com. It makes a request, just a GET request. And then I'm going to get some sort of data back. If it's successful, I'm going to execute all of this stuff, which we've gone into quite a bit. If it doesn't, if there's some sort of blow up, this particular bit of code is going to blow. We throw an extra little parameter here called timeout. Timeout is 2,000 milliseconds, which is 2 seconds. So if there's no response from the server in 2 seconds, then we're going to blow up and have this error. But other than that, we'll wait. We'll give them a buffer of about 2 seconds. This before send basically says before I send everything off, what's going to happen is I'm going to add on an extra. I'm going to add on an extra thing called loading. And I'm going to append this H4, which basically just says loading. And then once it's finished, I'm going to remove that H4 that I put there to begin with. So let's see if we can watch this happen as fast as possible. So I'm going to run, and nothing works because this is supposed to go on response data. I'm just going to change this to address. Now, I don't think you can see it because it's happening so quickly in the background. But there's this nice little tool here on the right side where I hit network. And I believe there's a way for me to actually slow down my machine, slow 3G, so that you can see this. So Chrome DevTools is really powerful. You're able to replicate what it looks like on a very slow 3G or 4G network. So if I refresh this, the amount of time that it takes is like for really slow 3G. I'm wondering, why can't I see this particular thing that says loading on here? I don't understand.
You don't have a tag for it.
I don't have a tag for it, yeah. So tell me what to type. How would I add a tag for it?
H4.
Probably, I could do an H4, but it's appending an H4 onto this already. So I need just some container to hold the loading ID. I can do div ID equals loading and just close the tag here.
No, you need loading text, right?
I don't believe so. I think I just need this. Because if you
okay.
see right here, this is just looking for address.
Yeah.
This one, similarly, if we're just, it's just looking for loading. So hopefully this will work. Find out. So let me refresh the page. And it's still going so fast, but I don't know if you can see it in the background, but there's something right there. Slow it down a little bit. Let's jump back over to network. And we're going to make this super slow.
The slowest you can go is fast 3G?
Slow 3G.
Slow 3G.
Yeah. All right, so we made it slow 3G. We're going to refresh. And it slowed it down just a little bit, but did you see that little thing that says loading? It's just something to get you like to get some notification on the screen. Let's just make this an H1 now, just to make it a little bit bigger because H4 is a little bit tiny.
What if we make the timeout like way less than 2 seconds?
If we made the time, it doesn't. So this is the timeout is related to how long do you want to wait for a response from the server. So this one, because it's responding so quickly, this doesn't matter. This is just saying like, what's the upper limit that you want to wait? So let me refresh. I made it an H1, so it's a little bit bigger. Loading. This is the slow 3G. And why are you not going away? Why is it not going away?
It's H4 remove.
Yep, it's H4 remove. I'm looking for an H1 remove. So let's try that one more time. Loading. It's really fast, but that little thing in the background that says loading, and then it goes away. Obviously, you're not limited to just throwing on like. Obviously, you're not limited to just throwing on text onto the field. I can find a GIF and just throw it on there. In fact, let's just do that. I'm kind of going off script here, so maybe a GIF of dancing baby. Okay. Let's go here. I just want to see the image. I don't want. All right, this is terrifying. So, all right. So let's see. Okay, I cannot believe I'm doing this, but let us get rid of this section right here. We're going to throw in an image tag to. Let's just. How do I put it? How do I put an image, a GIF in HTML? I don't know. We'll find out. HTML image. It looks like this is all I really need. Maybe I will throw in an image and I will get rid of this. And I'll call this the alternative. I'll call this dancing baby. This alt right here is alternative text. This is mostly for screen readers. So people who are hard of sight or are blind or something like that, they have screen readers that can read everything that's happening on the screen so they know how to interact with the website. That's a world that I'm not terribly familiar with. But. Okay. And I will remove all images afterwards. If all goes well, I will see some sort of dancing baby in the background. Oh, nope. Slow everything down a little bit. Let's go slow 3G and reload. All right, it looks like it's a dead image, which means inserting a animated GIF into HTML. I don't know what that is. Can't get the dancing baby in there.
Should have worked.
What's that? It should have worked. Yeah, I'm a little bit confused on why it did not work. But I mean it's neither here nor there. The whole purpose is kind of like this is an example of what it looks like to have like something happen before or and after the AJAX request fires off.
Is that 2,000 milliseconds?
2,000 milliseconds, which is should be 2 seconds. Again, the timeout is literally, if you make a request to JSON IP, how long do you want to wait before we just say there's not enough time? Like, how long do you want to wait for a response before we say this is taking too long, let's just kill it? It's usually about, you usually have about 2 seconds to capture your audience before they move on to another website. And it seems kind of ridiculous because like Louis C.K. is like, you know, like I make a request to when I make a request to this website, like they shoot a signal off into space and people expect it to come back super fast. It's not exactly true, but it's true. Like when you're on a website and it's slow, I'm just going to go somewhere else. Like I'm not going to give my business to this place. You have roughly 1 to 2 seconds before your customer loses interest. So that's why we gave this timeout of 2 seconds.
Can I ask about putting an ICO in the header? Not in the header, but like in that title section in the head? Because when I was looking at it last night, but then if you want to put an image in the header,
This thing right here.
yeah, it's like it needs to be an ICO image.
So if you take a look on the top left of most websites, like jQuery has this particular header here. The Twitter has the Twitter bird. Google has their new G. This is called a fav icon. A fav icon is the little icon that shows up on the top left-hand corner of a website's tab. It does need to be an ICO image because it needs to be. I don't even know what ICO stands for. I'm guessing it's like super small. I don't know. Let's take a look. Fav icon, HTML. How to add a fav icon to your website. Maybe it's just this. Okay, icon, PNG. Let me just choose a very, very small icon image. I will take this cat here, view image, copy it, and just dump it in here, and let's see if anything shows up.
Cool. I was having a hard time because it kept recommending I download it. So thank you.
So the reason why this one works is because the href is pointing towards an HTTP like online thing. So anytime that the site loads, it's making a request in the background to this particular icons.com to get this particular cat icon. And only from there, if this is down, then I don't have an icon up here on the top left. All right, so far we've done everything with getting data. Like we've just made a request, like we've sent a request out to somewhere and we just got back a response. We're just asking for get data. Well, now we're gonna practice something called posting data using AJAX. Because it's kind of like when you update a status or when I, here, just smile. Hold on 1 second. Everyone smile. Okay. I'm going to upload this. Come on. Why is this not working? Where's my Bluetooth? Bluetooth AirDrop? I promise I'm going somewhere with this. AirDrop. All right, I'm going to tweet real quick from the Code Platoon thing. Maybe I'll write, having a great time learning about AJAX, jQuery, AJAX.
Gotta add your hashtags.
Hashtag vets in tech, hashtag learning. Sure. All right, I'm gonna add my little picture right here. Throw this on there. Everyone looks happy. So what we've been doing so far is we've been getting data from the server. We can all post to the server. When I hit this tweet button, if I don't use Twitter very often, but I'm pretty sure that if I tweet this, it's not going to refresh the entire page. It's going to take all of the data that I want and send it in the background so that I can continue using this. So sending your tweet, this little thing is their feedback form. That's, remember the around, like before this, like before send, it was saying like, yeah, I'm uploading blah, blah, blah. And then afterwards, it says your thing is done, and then it disappears. But I've actually never left this website. Like I've never actually refreshed the website. I'm still here at my original place. This is an example of jQuery AJAX's post. So I'm using jQuery's AJAX, asynchronous JavaScript and XML in the background to send data over to the server. That's one example of what you would use every single day. Let's take a look of what. Let's do that ourselves real quick. So this disturbing thing can go away as well. This is an example of this is just a cute little website to record HTTP requests and give fake responses coming back. Let's create a puts request right here. And we're going to change some of these response codes. So let's just do response.status. I want to say like whenever somebody sends me some sort of request, I want it to be a good code. Which number is that? Like 200. All right, maybe I'll say response.headers with what I'm sending back. Content type is equal to application/JSON. And finally, response.body is equal to this. I'm sending a response back right over here. All right, so I'm going to add this tiny little form. I will keep everything up here. Why not? Get rid of this body. I'm going to throw this particular HTML in here. All right, so I have a form. Its ID is called comment form, and all it is just a giant input box. So if I jump over here, I have some sort of comment that's gonna capture whatever I type in here and send it off to this puts request. And then I have a little ID called comment status, which I'm gonna change just in a little bit. So let's take a look at this giant piece of JavaScript code that I'm about to write. Let's read line by line. Line 1 says, using jQuery, when the whole page loads, run this particular function, this huge thing between lines 1 and 25. Whenever comment form, which is right here on line 12, is submitted, I want you to grab whatever has been submitted and save it into E as like event. Now I'm going to grab let form data equals comment.serialize. So whatever is actually being put inside the comment box, I'm going to save that. I'm going to serialize it into form data, the variable called form data. Now, when you usually hit the submit button on a form, what happens? It takes you to another page, right? It automatically just starts like doing extra stuff. I don't want it to do that. I want to be in control of what's going on. So I'm going to prevent the default from happening. At that point, I want to change this. Remember, this refers to the comment form. I want to change it to disabled. I want to change it to gray so you can't keep entering stuff while I'm making this request in the background. And then I'm going to change all of the HTML to sending rather than the text box that's showing up. At that point, here's all of that AJAX stuff that we've seen before. So I'm saying this is going to be running asynchronously. The type of request that's going to be made is going to be a post request. The URL that I'm sending it to is going to be, where's this URL? I'll just grab this right here. Sending it here. The data I'm sending over is the form data from line 2. What type of data am I putting over? I'm just putting in basic tests. It's going to be a cross domain. Like I'm going to send it from myapplication.com to putsrequest.com. When it's finished, I'm going to change back the text instead. Change back the text to a button. If it blows up, it'll run this particular piece of code. If it's good, then it'll go into this comment status here on line 17 and say comment sent successfully, and then it'll change the submit comment button back to submit comment. Let's see if this works. Refresh the page, so load everything in. Low code platoon. Submit comment. Sending, comment sent successfully. Let's take a look at what we've got here. On our end, on puts request, we see that we have received one request from an external site. Let's take a look at what it looks like. This is everything that was sent over less than 1 second ago. The HTTP version was 1.1. There's a lot of things that we may understand, we may not understand. Some things we can pick up. What are we willing to accept? We're willing to accept plain text coming back. This is who is the user agent. Looks like I'm using a Mac, Mozilla 5.0. This is the content type that's coming through. This is the length of everything that's coming through. And there it is. It says, hello, Code Platoon, and my response is, hello, world. Any questions? Which I'm sure there are.
So the very top line one, is that equivalent to document.ready?
It is equivalent to document.ready.
Okay.
What are the blue methods?
The blue methods are JavaScript specific. Like, the reason that they're turning blue is because those are built-in JavaScript methods. So submit is a JavaScript built-in method. Serialize is a built-in JavaScript method. Prevent default is also one as well.
So serialize that turning into an hash, information to hash.
Let's find out. Let's take a look. Let's console log right here. So let's just console log what form data is. Let's refresh the page. Yeah. So I have right here, when I serialized it, it saved comment equals hello %20 space Raymond. So this serialize grabs all the data and kind of shoves it into, when you serialize, let's actually just look up JavaScript serialize method. The serialize method creates a URL encoded text string by serializing form values. So when you type in stuff, it's something space something 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 like. But the thing is, you can't pass spaces in an HTTP request like this. You actually have to, when you serialize it, it changes it into what's called UTF-8 characters, and that like this code, this %20 that doesn't make any sense to human beings, that actually stands for space. So it makes it into like a URL friendly code. Like when you go into any website, there's no spaces inside of a URL, right? Even though if you may have looked up something, like when I go into Walmart.com, and I looked up toilet cleaner, since we were talking about poop earlier this morning, there's no, even though I looked up 2 different words, it doesn't save a space inside of my URL. It has that %20 to clear up, to tell it's going to be a space. It's a pretty decent deal. Any other questions? You'll be working on this today, so it'll be interesting.
How were you able to cache that? How does that happen? Is that automatic?
I'm actually not caching it at all.
Well, it is because when you were getting ready to type into it, if you refresh it, it actually remembered what you were.
Oh, that's that one is just built into Chrome. That I didn't do anything fancy for that one. Chrome remembers all of the form data that you have, which is why I'm not clicking it, because I might have like birthday and social security on here. But sometimes when you fill out a form, it automatically fills out, right? I don't actually know how that's done. Chrome takes care of all of that for you. Like I didn't do anything special to get that functionality. Yeah. All right, let's take a 12-minute break until 10:30. And then Rod says he has got a call at 11. So if we can do Beyond Tech from 10:30 to 11. So I said, sure. So we'll do Beyond Tech at 10:30. We'll be back in 12 minutes.